Be diving in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Braindance Podcast, where you can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I'm Joe Curley. This is Fresh Lobster, and we've got plenty more Cyberpunk Trading Card Game cards to review today. We're focused on the new red and yellow cards. Peter's seen most of them. I've not seen most of them, so you get a bit of yin and yang. We're in a new recording setup today. We've got one microphone. I'm going to pass the microphone on to my co-presenter now.
Thank you very much, dear sire. Yeah, we're going to continue with cards that have been revealed since our last videos. And interestingly enough, they also put a lot of previously revealed cards into perspective. We got a lot of new added synergies, and we might have to reevaluate all of the other cards that we gave ratings so far in the future. But we'll do that closer to the launch. For now, it's, I think, a grand total of 42 cards that have been revealed since we did our last videos. So I'd say we just jump right into it. The first card is already on the screen. Johnny Silverhand Rocking Renegade. A red legend. 4/2 addies, you can spend him, and a friendly unit can attack spent rival units the turn it's played. If it's a rocker unit, also give it +2 power this turn. This effect costs -1 addy for each friendly gig with 8+ value. Any first thoughts on this?
I mean, it's Johnny Silverhand, so you'd expect it to be good, right? The $2, like, it's important to recognize, like, you spend the 2 eddies, but you also have to exert Johnny, right? So if you're not getting like any cost reduction, it's costing you 3, which is like extremely expensive, to be honest with you. But in an ideal world, you're going to be rolling like your big max gigs as quickly as possible. Get 2 of those with a gig value of 8, and then it's costing you only 1 to do it, which is a lot more powerful, right? Being able to attack spent units the turn something's played is definitely powerful, that's for sure. Like, I think Cyberpunk's a very swingy game, and like this kind of tempo is good. And the rock unit getting +2 power. +2 power is significant, right? That's sending something from an 8 to a 10, which, okay, you can't steal gigs of that additional power, but certainly enough to like get over the strength or the power of one of your opponent's units. So I think it's definitely got a lot of potential. Even without that rocker synergy, it's not bad.
One thing it really reminds me of, do you remember Sandevistan in the Alpha kit? This is basically that effect printed on a card, right? Sandevistan was a 3 cost +2 power. It can attack ready rival units. This can also be discounted. The downside, of course, is this is only a temporary buff for 1 turn. Sandevistan is somewhat permanent as long as the unit and the gear stays alive. I do think this is a pretty potent card. The other thing to mention is it has 3 tribal tags, 3 keywords: Merc, Rocker, and Samurai. Could come in quite handily in the future. We already know about Pepe Naharo synergizing with Mercs. Yeah, I think this is a really good card. We're going to continue with ratings. I think it's nothing super broken, but it's probably like an 8 out of 10.
I'm going to go 9 out of 10. I think it might be really good. I think I've got a good feeling about this one. Like, it's particularly good with rockers, right? But even if you don't have any rocker synergy, I still think it's like a really good option to have in your legend zone. It's not like you're going to use it every turn, but if you can just occasionally use it for just 1 and get something with rush, it's going to win you games.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Agreeing with the high rating here. Let us move on to the next card. We are going to jump straight. Whoopsie. Wait, that was the wrong way around. We got to go backwards. Here we go. Japantown Jonin. You love your 2-drops, right? That you can play on turn 1. This is a 0 power unit, but on play, it gives a friendly unit +2 power. They can also target themselves if you can give them the adrenaline keyword, but mostly also just give other units combat tricks. You can later buff this with gears and so on, and make sure this is a threat that can actually swing and steal gigs. What's your verdict on this? You didn't seem too impressed.
No, I don't think I am too impressed, Peter. 0 is not a lot of power, right? So you're going to need to have some synergies to get it up. Also, like, I think in Cyberpunk, the value from a 2-drop is playing it on turn 1, right? Your very first turn. Well, this is absolutely terrible on turn 1. I guess you can give it itself. I'm not sure if that's true, but it wouldn't matter, right? Because it's only for this turn, and it's going to have summoning sickness. So I think this card's like really bad, to be honest with you. Having said that, if you're playing like a super aggressive deck where you have tons of 2-drops and you can save some 2-drops for like later in the game to get some extra value from them, +2 power is interesting. But I mean, if you compare it to gear, right, it's actually like very comparable to equipment in this game. And I think it's fair to say that you'd rather just have like Mantis Blades, for example, that give something 2 extra stats permanently without the body on board. I think is just a better way to go.
I generally agree. I do think this could see play in some aggro strategies. There has been another card revealed that you haven't seen yet that gives other units the adrenaline keyword. And there's definitely some synergies there. So I do think this is not usually a turn 1 play necessarily, or it's not that good going first on turn 1. But in the later turns as a combo pop-off, this could see some play. I do agree this is probably a subpar 2-drop opposed to what we've seen before. I'm gonna give this like a slightly sub-average rating, like a 4 out of 10.
1 out of 10.
Okay, I respect it. Moving on, this time we got a 3-drop, Valentino Guerrera. If you have more street cred than a rival, this unit can attack ready units with blocker. What's your verdict on this one?
It's interesting, right? I mean, blockers are very powerful, right? So being able to target a friend, like an opponent's blocker, is good because that means like then you could use your unit with like 10 power to actually steal gigs, right? Which otherwise would have been blocked. So it's definitely solid. Having more street cred than a rival unit is very easy to achieve because you can order your attacks before you attack with Valentino, right? You steal a gig. That's like a huge swing in street cred. You should therefore probably have more. So it's definitely got a good ability. The question is then, is actually like is 4 stats for 3 good enough? And honestly, I could possibly see it. This is like the kind of card which in like games with sideboards, for example, would be really good. Not sure though. Like I think you might just prefer raw stats. I actually think it could be good.
I do agree. I think it could be really good because most blockers we've seen have like 2 or 3 power, and this can at least get 1 value trait, and then it still needs to be taken care of by the opponent. This might take out multiple blocker units even. Imagine you hide this behind another blocker unit, and this can attack multiple times and take out your opponent's blockers. Again, I do agree it's somewhat conditional. Your opponent needs to play a fair amount of blockers for this to consistently be good, but even then it's still a 3-4, not necessarily understated. I think just in and by itself, this is a way above average card. I'm giving this an 8.5 out of 10.
The real question with this card is how good are blockers and how prominent are blockers, right? This is not a sellable card. So if you're playing against a deck which doesn't have blockers, it's not going to be very impressive at all, right? It's going to be really lackluster. But in those games against blockers, it is going to be putting in a lot of work. Hard to evaluate, depends on the meta. But if we're in a heavy blocker meta, which based off our playtesting from the initial alpha kit, we probably will be, it's probably a good card. I'm going to go 8.5.
Let's go. Yeah, blocker is a good keyword. No doubt about that. We're gonna move on to a big guy, Screw, Lovelorn Fool. 5 for 7, and it has a value keyword, or value effect rather. Defeated, add another unit from your trash to your hand. Okay, I'll take the lead with this one. At first sight, pretty solid stat line. I think 5/7 plus an effect is what we've seen so far from most 5-drops. The trash synergy is coming in. Last episode, we were criticizing some cards that were putting cards into the trash and not very consistently fishing cards out of it. This could be one of those payoffs for putting cards into your trash. I do think it might be a bit on the slower side. From our experience so far, the Cyberpunk games are fairly fast. Tempo is probably going to be more important than card advantage in the long run. This still has okay stats to make up for it. I will say this is a bit too vanilla for my taste to see a ton of play. Even though you can play this fairly early on turn 2. I'd say this is like a 6.5 out of 10. Slightly above average card.
Yeah, I would agree. I think like the key thing with this card is what are you bringing back? All it would take is like some kind of very, very strong synergy, right? With like some kind of card which you could like replay for 0. And then suddenly this card will be really good. So the effect on this is actually really powerful. The card on its own, I think, is above average, so reasonable stats. The big question mark is like, what are you actually bringing back? If you're just bringing back any old unit, like more screws, it's going to be too slow probably, right? Of course, you can draw lots of cards. But from what we've seen, actually, there's quite a lot of card draw available. And actually, what you more care about is tempo. But if there's like some kind of card which is costing you very, very little and you can bring that back and replay it immediately the same turn, right? Or when it's defeated shortly afterwards, So when this is then defeated, you get like a big splash the next turn where you get to play something very cheaply and a big unit. Then it would be a lot more appealing, right? So I have to wait and see, but I will give it also a 6 out of 10 on its own. Like, it's actually super fine, but it could be really, really staple and meta if there is a 2-card combo.
Agreed. Okay, moving on. Johnny Silverhand as a 6-drop with 8 power. The first time this unit wins a fight each turn, ready it. This unit wins all fights against corpo units. First of all, thematically, this card is on fleek. So close to what Johnny Silverhand feels like in the Cyberpunk 2077 video game, what his values are, what he wants to do the whole time, fight corpos. The second half of the effect is very situational though, right? This would make it an incredible sideboard card, or if there's ever a heavy corpo meta, this is going to be the perfect counterattack. Even the first half of the card, I think, is pretty good though. This can always threaten to take out 2 of your opponent's units each turn, or take out a blocker or something, or a spent unit, and then still steal a gig. And this is at 8 power. It's not that easy to get to, it's not that hard to get to 10 and be able to steal 2 gigs. I do think this is gonna be a good choice. 3 keywords as well. Rocker keyword there with the Johnny Silverhand legend. The turn it's played, this can already fight 2 of the opponent's units, right? Can really swing the tempo of the game. I think this is gonna be a very solid combo, especially with the Silverhand legends. I'm even giving this a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I might even give it a 9.5. Like, I think the more I look back at like the Johnny Silverhand legend we started the video with, the more I like it. This is very good with that, but even, I mean, it's really good with that, right? Like, oh my goodness, it's good with that. You can just rush in with it, take out 2 cards. The fact that there's no damage counters in this game is a huge part of the reason this card is absolutely insane, right? You can go in, you can rush in with the Johnny Silverhand legend if you're at 7 eddies, right? And then this guy can challenge, take something out, ready, do it again, and then you're just clearing 2 threats and you've still got this guy on the board. Seems like an extremely strong card. I definitely expect to see a lot of it being played. 9.5 out of 10. All right. We have Octant. It's a 7 cost. It's got 8 power. It's a drone. It's Militech, and it's Zetatech. Play this unit for -1 Eddie for each friendly gig with 8+ value to a minimum of 1 Eddie. So this costs 7, but for every gig you have with 8 value or more, it will cost you less. So let's say, I get a bit lucky. I get 2 gigs above 8 early on, and then you also got a gig above 8. I still one of those. You can play it pretty easily for like 4 for 8, which is extremely good, right? There's going to be some games though where you roll your big max gigs, you have a bit of a stinker, and then this card's going to be stuck in your hand a little bit, right? It does seem good though. Like if the name of the game is max gigs, right? 8 stats for 4 is good. Having said that, you're probably not going to find that on curve, right? So you're probably more like realistically looking to play it at like 6 on curve. Then you get it to 5 later in the game. So I actually don't know that I love it because you can't get it like cheap on curve. The cheaper reduction is going to come later into the game. I don't think I like this one particularly, I've got to say. I'm going to give it maybe like a 4.
Yeah, it's hard to evaluate. From what we've seen so far, Red has quite a few ways of increasing gigs. So rolling the big ones first and then increasing them is going to get you there quite consistently to a couple of discounts, but that does usually require investing more resources, which indirectly would make this card more expensive. In a deck that wants to do this the whole time anyway, it could be good. I could even see this be a staple in a specific 8+ like max value gig deck. One thing that's holding it back a bit is it costs 4 RAM. So you do need to go pretty heavy on those synergies. The other thing is these keywords, we have not seen very positive synergies yet so far, but these are vulnerable to take control. That's a quick hack, I think, that makes sure that a drone unit or like an opposing unit cannot steal a gig, and then if it's a drone or something, you draw 1. So as of right now, these keywords are more of a downside, a bit of a hindrance. I'm not going to be quite as critical as you on this one. I think in the right deck, because it can be a staple, it can be like a 7 out of 10. But I totally agree that this is going to be Usually, you won't be able to play this in the early game, but in the mid game, it can be a big power swing. Moving on. One of my favorites from the newest revealed cards, Yorinobu Arasaka, the Steel Dragon. 7 for 9 is already pretty solid, and then on play, you may play a unit with cost 4 or less from your hand or trash for free. It can attack rival units this turn. The first time an Arasaka unit is defeated each turn, draw 1. I saw this card and then immediately thought this is a 10 out of 10. And do you want to give your first impression first?
You sent this one to me. You got so excited about this card. So I've seen this one. Yeah, it's really good. Also like 9 power, but bear in mind that can very easily get to 10 with some of the Arasaka Legend synergy. It's really good. You get to draw, and replace itself. You get to swing in with something expendable, which you can also like rinse and repeat. If you've got like 1 4-cost unit that's really good, right? You can almost like sacrifice it. It goes back into your discard. Okay, you can't rinse and repeat. Ignore that because it's on play. But the card's very good, right? It's really, really good.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing to note is each turn you can draw one. That also means in your opponent's turn. So on your turn, you want to trade your Arasaka units off. And in your opponent's turn, they're going to have the tough choice whether or not they want to take out more of your Arasaka units. Like, this card is obviously going to be better the more Arasaka units are going to get printed. And if you can ever build a full-on Arasaka deck, this is going to be crazy good. Right now, it does cost 3 RAM, which is a good thing. You do need to play 2 Red Legends. Still think there's going to be enough Arasaka cards for this to be somewhere between a 9 or a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and especially if there's like a 4-cost unit that has like a very impressive on-play effect that you want to play multiple copies of, right? Especially like when an attacking kind of effect. It's really good. So yeah, I think this will probably be a staple.
I'm curious. So do you think this is actually going to be a 3-off consistently or more of a 2-off, 1-off because it's a bit expensive? Yeah,
maybe 2 because like it's unsellable, right? It's expensive. Certainly like as a 1-off, it's hard to go wrong. But as soon as you start including too many copies, like it can backfire quite quickly.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I can still see this be 3-offs just because the effect is so strong. Multiple Yorinobus at the same time should also be pretty fun. Okay, let's move on to the next one. We are in our program zone right now. It costs 4 RAM. Gotta play 2 Red Legends. And the next time a friendly unit wins a fight by 3 plus power this turn, it also steals a gig. What's your take on this one?
Well, it's expensive, let's be fair. Like 3 costs for not actually doing anything in terms of board presence is a lot, but like to close the game out, this is very powerful because in Cyberpunk you're usually like left with a decision. You either take a trade, right, and like move your board state further towards your advantage, or you start accelerating your win condition in terms of like the gig dice. Well, this allows you to do both at the same time, right? So I'm attacking a unit, I'm gaining control of the board, but I'm also making things really difficult. So it's an extremely good card to play when you're looking to close a fight, like close out a game. Having said that, it is slow. 3 is a lot. Doesn't give you any extra stats. So I don't know. It's quite niche. You wouldn't want to play many copies of it, I think. But there could definitely be like some aggro strategies that utilize this kind of card to close out the game, right? Like if I'm going really aggressive, you've got some defenders down that are just swinging in each turn. I'm trying to equalize the board, but I just need like that 1 extra gig. This is the thing that could seal the deal. But there might be better ways of doing that.
Yeah, I agree. It's a bit of a tough one to evaluate. The really good thing is it's a program. It is sellable in the early game where you probably won't need it. That could justify even running 3 of these. I do like these very situational programs because the effect can be entirely game-winning. It is somewhat conditional though, right? The 3 plus power difference also means you need to be fairly far ahead on the board in the first place. I do think it's definitely playable. I think it's not going to be like an absolute meta staple. I'm going to give this it's sellable, so I'm going to give this like a 6 out of 10.
I really don't know. Like, my kind of play style means that I like this card, but I'm going to give it a 3. I'm not sure. I think there might be better ways to make it. I could be totally wrong. This might prove to be my favorite card, but I'm not convinced. It's a bit too niche.
I can see the criticism, though. I can totally see it. Curious to see how this one is going to play out once the meta actually unfolds. Moving on, Bonnie and Clyde. I'll let you read this one.
So it's a 3-cost program, sellable. Defeat, it's a Braindance. We're the Braindance podcast, so we like it already. Defeat a rival unit with power 4 or less. You may defeat 2 instead if your rival controls at least 2 gigs more than you. That's very good. That's very good, isn't it? Pay 3, remove 2 things. Seems good to me. 4 power is kind of low, but you can deal with blockers of this, right? We talked about how like dealing with blockers is good. Obviously, you can sell it. Certainly, it's like a little one-of that you just can sell very often and not feel too bad. And again, really depends on the format, but I think it's a very good card, especially as a one-of where like there's not as much risk and you can just sell it in certain matchups without like drawing into loads of them, right?
Yeah, and again, 3 red RAM, you gotta currently be in double red to play this. So I think like blue is mostly gonna be a very Braindance centered color, which would be most happy about it. It's actually kind of cool that this is in red though. It does fit the color, color identity thematically. I do think it's pretty good even though it's conditional, but the potential max effect is enormous. And it is one of those cool comeback cards that I heard the main Cyberpunk TCG podcast talk about. It's a very cool card design that does something in any state of the game, but does quite a lot to make the game more interesting if one person is way too far ahead. And I do think this could be a 2 or 3 of in most double red decks. Sell it if you don't need it, and especially for later on, actually hold it. I think this is an high rating, 8.5 out of 10.
I guess like there's also counterplay here though, right? Because you could see like a very slow deck playing this, right? That's like slow to get going, just needs to clear threats to not let their opponent run away with it. And interestingly, like if let's say you've got Bonnie and Clyde in your deck and I kind of expect it, if I'm the aggro player, rather than like stealing loads of gig dice earlier, I can just like look to develop the board a little bit and then just take like a huge big swing later on in the game. And before then, just make sure I'm not 2 gigs ahead of you to prevent the value from this. But I mean, even if it does that, there's actually value in that, right? Like the fact that it would slow me down to that extent. So I think it's a very good card. The more I look at it, the more I like it. I actually think it could be even like 9.5 out of 10 and maybe not even like just a one-of. Like I think you could put it as like a one-of in like basically any deck, but then like some control decks I think could definitely make use of this as well.
Yeah, I really like this card design as well. You mentioned a great point. This can be somewhat gameplay and meta shaping, even if it's not played. Just the threat of your opponent maybe having it in their deck might entice you to play more smartly around it, basically, and not just go for the, let's say, brainless aggro strategy.
There's also Floor It, which I think is like one of the most broken cards anyway, right? And there's more synergy there. You've got a 5 power guy that I really want to deal with. Well, I pay 1. Now it's 4, I draw a card, and Bonnie and Clyde's good to go. So yeah, blue, red, Bonnie and Clyde, sign me up for that.
Yeah, definitely synergizing with anything that reduces the power on opponents' units. Might see more of that in the future. Moving on, Over the Edge, one of the more interesting removal spells, also very situational. Defeat a unit with power equal to or less than the value of a friendly D20. Of course, the D20 has to be the last die that's rolled into the game, so it can only be used like the last couple of turns in the game. This is more for drawn-out games, drawn-out strategies. The cool thing is Red has a lot of access to increasing die value if you low roll on your D20. Or if your opponent has a high D20, you can steal that first, then play Over the Edge and remove a potentially really big threat. I think this is a pretty cool situational card. Again, doesn't have to be a 3-of because in the first, 5 turns, it always gets sold. But for just 3 eddies, removing something enormous on the opponent's side can be a huge payoff.
It definitely can. And I mean, right, so your average roll of a D20 is 10, right? So on average, you're able to remove something that is 10. And if you low roll, you can sell it still. I think it's very good. I think it's very, very good. So I think that the card will see play in some decks. Like, you're never going to play this in certain decks, but in a deck that is always getting to that, if you're winning the game, you have to win past turn 6. You would probably consider playing this. Not a 3-of, a 1-of certainly. I think it's very interesting. I actually like the card quite a lot. I'm going to give it a 7.
I agree. I can see this be played a lot as a 1 or 2 off. Just the threat of having this card there can already be very good. I'm also going to give it like a 7.5, 8 out of 10 for those reasons. Definitely niche and situational, but when it pops off, it's going to go hard. All right. We're moving on to yellow. I'll let you read these bad boys out.
All right, so we're back on to the units. We've got the Augmented Negotiators. It's 3 cost, 2 power with blocker. And when this unit uses blocker, a rival discards 1. Busted. This kind of effect's really strong. We have something similar in Disney Arcana. And some of the best cards in the game that, like, when challenged, force your opponent to discard. But the fact that it's also a blocker, it does cost 3, right? So you can't play like the turn 1 blocker. I'm not sure you really care about turn 1 blocker. But like if you're going second, you're in a slower deck. If you're going second, you could open with this, call a legend as well, right? Not a bad start. And apply some hand pressure. So if there's more discard tools, it becomes better. Discard is, if you're just doing 1 discard, not super impressive. It's definitely good because you go 1 for 1. It's very comparable to drawing a card, right? In terms of like net card advantage between yourself and your opponent. But so sorry, just good out the gates. But then if you can start to have more discard tools and you can really start to apply so much pressure to your opponent's hand, they can't sell a card each turn, right? In Cyberpunk, you draw 1 card a turn and you're most likely going to be selling a card and wanting to play a card. So if there's a little bit of extra discard becomes a very viable strategy. And if that is the case, this will be an auto-include card. And even if it's not, I still think the card's very good. 9.5.
Okay. When I first saw the card, I was immediately like 10 out of 10 out of the gates. It is a blocker. Even if you just use it once, discarding is pretty cracked, or your opponent's going to have to throw removal at it. What I find interesting too, Arasaka keyword. This can get buffed by some legends. This synergizes heavily with Yorinobu Arasaka, because this usually dies in your opponent's turn. They're going to discard 1, you're going to draw 1. That being said, it's, like you mentioned, it's mostly good in a slower game plan, I think, that goes a bit more for card value, card advantage. The question is the flow of Cyberpunk TCG in general too fast for card advantage to matter that much? That's why, after thinking about it a bit longer, and I did test this card a little bit, it wasn't as good as I expected. At first I thought, especially with 1 yellow ram, this is an auto-include 3 of in almost any deck. I still think in the right deck and with a slower strategy, this is going to be a 9-ish out of 10. I'm not as super duper high on it, though, as I first was when I first saw it. Moving on. Next card. Dexter Deshawn, One Last Chance from the new trial decks. Want to read this one out?
Yeah, so he costs you 3. He's got 4 power. He's a fixer. And when you play and when you attack, you adjust a gig by up to 1. So you can move it up or down, yours or your opponent's. And when defeated, if your street cred differs from a rival's by 10 or more, draw 2. It's a lot. Drawing 2. You get to, so basically, right, overall Dexter Deshawn, it gives you a body on the board in the early game. A 4-statted body for 3. You can adjust some gigs, which there's definitely quite a lot of synergy with that. I actually think that's where the main value is, right? Being able to adjust the gigs by 1 can make a big difference. You can get minimum gigs of this, for example, or set up minimum gigs for like the Jackie. When it's defeated, it does more than replace itself. It draws you an additional card, right? So it's definitely not a bad card by any stretch. The big question mark is like, how worth it are these abilities to be playing a very low power card at this stage? And I think it's probably okay. I've got to say, I'm not the biggest fan of it. Like, I feel like 3 cost is a bit of a weird one, because when you're going first, you have 2. When you're going second, you have 4. You know, when we've been playing, we've been really wanting to like call our legends in, yes, but you'd probably rather play a 4-drop on your first turn rather than like a 3-drop and calling in a legend, right? It's like, there's some of the time you can call in a legend and you get like a go solo legend, and there's a lot of tempo lost potentially. So I think 3 is a bit of a weird threshold. I don't think I actually like the card, even though there's very powerful abilities. It's just like statted a bit in a weird spot. If it costs 4 and had like some extra stats, I would like it a lot more. Or if it costs 2 and had less stats, I would like it a lot more. But maybe I'm not the biggest fan of 3 drops.
All right. Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. I do think it's very dependent on the deck's game plan, though, because if you play a deck that wants to flip the legends early and always, then I think this is really good. I think this is heavily synergistic with some very specific interactions. For example, the green Hanako legends that I think you have not seen yet. But I think once you see it, you'll get why I'm also fairly high on Dexter Deshawn. There's some pretty insane synergies there. I really like this card thematically. It adds a lot of depth into the back and forth of Cyberpunk just because your opponent can counterplay the second half of the card very effectively, but they also need to choose, like say your opponent plays a max gig deck, do I really want to run away and make everything big while my opponent keeps everything small? So this is one of those interesting cards that is going to be best in a, like Dexter Deshawn is going to be best in a deck that can adapt to playing either max gigs or min gigs, right? And that does make it a bit more niche in deck building. Like you wouldn't play this with a blue Jackie Wells most likely, because then you're kind of committed to wanting min gigs. If your opponent does the same, this Dexter Deshawn card is a lot worse. It's a really tough one to evaluate. I still think this is good. I think the 3/4 stat line is also okay. Standalone, I think this card's just like 4 or 5 out of 10. I think in the right strategy, this can be a 7 or 8 out of 10 enabler. It's never going to be crazy, but it can be a really juicy and nice payoff.
I think that you're not going to draw off this card very often. That's my concern, to be honest. It's like, when is it defeated realistically? Well, it's going to be defeated in your opponent's turn, right? And therefore your opponent is going to have the choice if they defeat it at that moment when you draw 2, or if they say, actually, I'm going to steal one of your gigs first, bridge that gap, or you know what, I'm just going to let Dexter Deshawn stick around for a bit longer. He's only got 4 stats. I don't really care that much. It's definitely a very powerful ability. It's a really cool card. I like it a lot, and I like the design of a lot of the cards. I got a bad feeling about this one, and I feel like this might be the one that the comments are going to tell me I'm absolutely wrong. But 3?
Okay.
Hot take.
Okay, we're going to disagree quite heavily here. I do get your point, though, that this card is easy to outplay. Like, it's very possible for your opponent to just completely negate this card's effect, but it might make it awkward for them in the first place. Also, we might see some card later on that kind of lets you defeat your own units, which does make the effect a bit more consistent. We'll get there soon. Let's move on to the next one. One of your favorite characters, eh? Victor Vector. Why don't you read this one out for us?
I do like a bit of Victor Vector. You might feel a little pinch. It's a 3 cost, 3 power, Ripperdoc. When you play it, you play a cyberware gear with cost 2 or less from your trash for free. Equip it only to another friendly unit. So it's a 3 for 3, but it's actually a lot more than a 3 for 3, right? Because you get a gear from your trash. Now, the problem is it's like a 3 drop that requires you to have something in your trash already, which is a little bit awkward because, like, if you play this on curve, it's going to just be a 3 for 3, right? So don't love it in that sense. But if you've got really powerful cyberware gear that costs 2 or less, and I think there's a lot of very powerful gear, then this card's very solid. I think that it's not great though, because of the thing that I mentioned, the fact that you can't really play it on curve very effectively. I think that it makes it a bit awkward, but it's definitely a well-statted card, I think. Like, let's say like the 2 cost gear is going to give you like 2.5 points, like 2.5 power on average. You know, you're pushing like 5 for this, which is good, but not great. I think it's quite bad.
Another way to see this is this can be a 1 cost for 3 power, which is pretty good, but you can't really play this early and get the effect, right? This is more of a mid-game, late-game combo card. And then the 2 cost gears are usually not going to be the most impactful. Some cool things you could do is, for example, use up the blocker gear early on and then recycle it with Victor Vector. There's definitely some playmaking potential here. In the right deck, I could see this be a 1 or 2 off. I doubt this will be a 3 off. Also, the limitation that you cannot equip to legends is pretty important. Otherwise, you could yoink something like a Zeta Tech faceplate from your trash, equip it to a legend, and then have a draw engine going. It's kind of cool that, there's nothing too broken you can do with this card. I do agree. I really like the card's design. I think it's niche and situational. Give this like a 5 out of 10.
1 out of 10. Now, let me tell you why. Hot take. It's outrageous. So, it's tricky because basically every unit in Cyberpunk, not every unit is unsellable. And I know from experience with games with similar mechanics, any kind of unsellable card that is a bit niche and awkward is just going to feel bad very often, and you're going to want to take it out of your deck. So even though I actually think the card is quite powerful, I just think the fact that it's unsellable and not something I can play on curve, there's going to be games where it's just stuck in your hand and you're like, why am I playing this card? And then you take it out of the deck. So you could like maybe play it as a one of, it's actually a super fine card. I like some hot takes to, cause a bit of controversy. I'll go up to a 1.2 out of 10.
I respect it. And I also feel like on average, I'm giving really high ratings to cards. I think that speaks to the game design of Cyberpunk TCG though, because every card is going to find some use. Like it's really hard to have like a baseline average because every card is going to be good in the right setting, in the right context. And that's what makes deck building really rewarding. All right. I do like the hot takes though. Maybe there's going to be some memes out of it eventually. Moving on. Another yellow unit. Max tag suppression team. 5 cost, 7 power. Rival units can't attack the turn they're played. Pretty straightforward. This is supposed to shut down adrenaline strategies. We saw green have some adrenaline cards. We saw blue, I think, have some adrenaline cards. I think this card's too niche. The stat lines is okay, but this is not as good as something like a Flathead or the, the Scorn, I think, the red one we saw earlier at 5/7. More of a counter card if the meta is really heavy on Adrenaline Rush or as a potential sideboard card. But in and by itself, this is subpar. I'll give this like a 3 out of 10.
It's another one of these kinds of cards which, if it was sellable, it would be so good, right? Like you can just sell it in certain matchups, but the fact that it's going to be in your deck all the time, I actually have a feeling it might prove to be pretty good. Now, my reason for that is, it's like, I just have a gut feeling that it's going to be very tempo-focused format. And Johnny Silverhand, for example, where you can like, attack immediately, like the go solo guys, just generally adrenaline as a keyword is very powerful, I think. So I actually think it might be quite good. It's a 5/7. Honestly, 6 out of 10.
That brings up an interesting question though, like which effect overrules which? Like is max type suppression team always going to be the dominant? Because the other one says like cards can attack the turn they're played. This says can't attack the turn they're played. Yeah. I'm not quite sure if there is a rules clarification on this yet, but assuming that this shuts down not just Rush and Adrenaline, but also Johnny Silverhand effects and so on, or like the Oda effects and some other cards we've seen, Sandavistan kind of effects. That does make the card a bit better. And it's still, at worst, it's a 5/7. It's still an okay stat line. Okay, moving on. This is one I'm excited about. I'll read this one out. It's a 7/8. Already an okay stat line, 3 yellow ram, Alt Cunningham. When a friendly equipped unit or legend is spent, draw 1. When a rival unit would steal a gig, you may discard 1 with cost equal to that gig's value. If you do, the gig isn't stolen. Now, I think I sent you this card as well, so you already had a little bit of time to wrap your head around it. What's your take on this?
I mean, it seems extremely good, right? Let's be honest. It's like, the first time you see this, you're like, wow, that's outrageous. You can draw so many cards from this. You play it down, you spend a legend, you spend a unit, you draw a bunch of cards very, very quickly. And then you've got an abundance of cards in hand. And maybe, just maybe, you've got gigs at 8, 9, 7, 6. And maybe, just maybe, you've got one of each of those in your hand. And suddenly this Alt Cunningham is just stopping your opponent winning the game. Now, it might be a little bit optimistic, of course, it might be. The second part of the ability to like discard 1 to stop your opponent getting a gig is not going to come up that often, to be honest with you. But really, I think the power of this one is in the draw and then that ever so slight potential. Because the draw on this is so much, there is a real chance that you could just discard 1 to stop a gig being stolen. And yeah, the card's crazy, but honestly, the more I look at it, the less I'm convinced. Like, I feel like if I'm playing against this card, I'm just trying to have won the game before this matters. And I think that the second part of the ability to stop, like a gig's value, you have to discard a card with cost equal to that. That just doesn't sound like it's likely to pop up very often. When it does pop up, it's going to be great. But how often do you really expect that to happen? 1 in every 6 times you play this card? 1 every 5 times you play this card? 20% tops, probably? I don't know.
Rating?
7.
Okay, that's still a good rating. First of all, when I saw this again, I thought immediately 10 out of 10. Keep in mind, this is in the color that has the most options to manipulate gigs in both ways, right? We had Dexter Deshawn, we had after parties as Lizzie's and so on. And this is also in the color that often wants differently valued gigs. For example, with the Zeta Tag faceplate that benefits if you have gigs of different values. I do think this card's really good because it's not only okayly statted, it is fairly hard to take out. At the same time, like, it does so much. The turn it is played, you can probably already draw like 2 cards of it. It is in yellow, it does have access to a lot of gear. Maybe put a Zeta Tag faceplate on one of your legends. You're already going to draw 2 immediately there. And then at the same time, this wants to be in a slower strategy. And the second half of the effect can just slow your opponent down. And this card might just not even be a loss of tempo in any way, but it's an engine that has to be dealt with, or you're just going to draw a gazillion cards each game. I'm a big fan of this, but I am also a fan of slower strategies. One more thing to mention is this might be the absolute staple and build around in a double yellow deck because you also have access to the ramp card after party at Lizzie's. No, what is it called? Black Sapphire Bootleg, something like that. And you might be able to play this as early as turn 3. And yes, you do need to sacrifice a lot of early tempo, but I'm hoping that Alt Cunningham will be able to make up for it with both of her effects. I'm still pretty high on this card. I'll stick with 10 out of 10. I want this to be a 10 out of 10. I am going to play this so much and try to make this work. You want to get the next one? Oh, this is a spicy one. This one I haven't seen before neither. I want to see you read this out and get your first impression.
Okay, so it's The Relic Experimental Biochip. It's got to be good, right? We've played Cyberpunk. Come on. It's 5 cost. It's +3. And it is gear. And I think gear generally is very, 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 very good. I'm a bit of a gear believer. When defeated, play another unit with cost 9 or less from your trash for free. Then bottom deck this unit. 9 or less from your trash for free. Pretty good.
What a coincidence. What kind of 9-cost card has a really, really, really strong on-play effect?
Smasher?
You got it.
Yes. Well, because with the Relic, you would think it would be Jolly Silverhand, right? But I guess it's Adam Smasher.
Yeah, so basically, if you can... we saw some cards that I think can defeat their own gear, or like... you can put this on a blocker and make sure it dies. If you did put 1 copy of Adam Smasher in your trash before it, this is basically a full board wipe. And this can come in a lot earlier than the Adam Smasher play effect itself. So in case your opponent does try to just out-race you, just out-aggro you, this can be a somewhat surprising like board clear all of a sudden. Now the question is, well, it does cost 4 yellow RAM. It's going to be in some very niche specific deck. Can you get there consistently enough for this effect to pop off?
Probably. It could be good. If there's like, the big thing is like, can you discard the units? Because you like this card is not good if you play it like very late in the game when you've already had like, you've played a 9-cost unit, it gets discarded. But like when we look at these 9-cost units like Adam Smasher, we're like, okay, that's so powerful, but how the heck do you flipping get there? Well, with this card, you can suddenly get there on your 5th turn. If you somehow set up a discard, you've played a unit, you equip this to it, it's +3 for 5 and it's sellable. I think the card's extremely good. I think this card's absolutely busted, actually. This card's busted. The bigger question is like, is the rest of the package of cards there to make this busted enough, right? But like, this is busted for sure. The question is the rest of the stuff there yet? But like one day, if not in set 1, one day this card will be everywhere. 10 out of 10!
Okay. Hot take, 1 out of 10. The reason being, I think this card is... when it pops off, it's going to win games, and I think it's just going to pop off so rarely, and you're going to try to make this card pop off, and you're going to lose so many games while getting there. I think this is an unbelievably well-designed and fun card to play with. This is like a Timmy's dream. A lot of decks will be built around this. I think the decks are going to be subpar.
Okay, but hear me out. It's sellable. It's +3.
5.
And I mean, okay, so let's say you even just bring back, let's not say a 9-drop, right? Because the 9-drop's the dream. What if you bring back a 5-drop?
But they do have to have strong on-play effects, right? Because now that I think about it, we saw something like, what is it called? Caliber, that has like a play effect and a defeated effect. I didn't even consider that yet. That's a good point.
Okay, I did misunderstand the card. So you play another unit of cost 9 or less from your trash for free, then that unit gets bottom deck. Okay, I misunderstood the card, I'll be honest. My expectation, my thought was is that you bottom deck the unit this was initially equipped to. So my mistake, I misunderstood the card. Explaining the card reads the cards. I'll go down from a 10 out of 10, because that does change things a lot, to a 7.5 out of 10.
That's fair. I also just realized when you get a card back with this, the defeated effect does not trigger because it's getting bottom decked. The card that gets revived gets bottom decked and not defeated again into the trash. So it has to be a strong play effect specifically. Yeah, I'd stick with my initial assessment. I do think this is going to make for some of the craziest moments in Cyberpunk TCG. It's going to be a lot of fun, but just competitively, I don't think it's good. Now we have another one, Safety Override. 3 yellow RAM, 2 cost, a quick hack that says the next time a friendly unit loses a fight, defeat the opposing rival unit. How nasty is this with blockers?
Next time a friendly unit loses a fight, this then defeat the opposing rival unit. That's pretty busted. I mean, you would also still defeat your own, right? But it's basically just taking anything out that you want for 2. And it's sellable. I mean, isn't that just broken? Isn't that kind of broken? It's like, okay, I pay 2 and my guy dies and so does your guy that's much bigger than it. I think that's broken.
I think it's gonna be good in decks that start slowly. Like decks with Alt Cunningham, Mother of Demons, that do draw a lot and you'll get there consistently. And you're also happy that this can be sold in the early game. But you kind of gotta like hold your line with some blockers maybe. And then if you have card advantage anyway, if you have more cards in hand than your opponent, then Safety Override is incredibly good. Especially if you only like have to spend a cheap blocker, you sacrifice a cheap blocker and you take out a unit with multiple gears attached to it maybe. Then this card is not card disadvantage, but it might go even or even trade up in absolute card numbers and value, basically.
Yeah, and like to be fair, you're overall going like 2 cards to their 1, right? You're losing a blocker, let's say, and losing this. You're taking out one of their units that probably cost more. So like in terms of like card advantage, it's a disadvantage. The other thing is like there's bluff potential and stuff like this with this card because it's a quick effect and you really have to use it in your opponent's turn. If I've got 2 open, well, you can possibly predict that I've got this, but then maybe you could also argue that I don't have it and I'm getting value from it without actually having to even play it in the first place. Maybe I do have it, I didn't play it, but I still got value despite not playing it. So I think the card's very good. I like it a lot. I think it will see play. I give it it's also the card number 69. I'm going to give it a 6.9 out of 10.
Yeah, one cool thing to note here is that I think this card is going to be a great combination with the negotiators we saw earlier. The blocker that makes your opponent discard a card. That can really drain your opponent of resources quite quickly. The other thing to note is, if I'm reading this correctly, the next time a friendly unit loses a fight this turn, you can also play this in your turn. So if your opponent spends a big unit, you can just run something very small into it. Maybe a Japantown Ronin, whatever, with the 0 power, sacrifice it. It already did its job. And you take out a big thing on the opponent's side. Yeah, I think this, in the right decks, this is going to be like a 8.5, let's say 9 out of 10.
Let's say 9.5 out of 10.
Not quite 10 out of 10, though. Okay, thematically, beautifully designed card, the heist with V and everyone's favorite, Jackie Wells. Want to read this one out?
Yeah, it's the heist. It's a 2-cost program. It's sellable, and I do love a sellable card. It's a Merc tag. Trash 4. I prefer calling it the rubbish. Rubbish 4. Add a gear from among them to your hand. If that gear costs equal the value of a friendly gig, you may play it for free instead. Okay, hear me out. I have a gig with a value of 5. I play the biochip for free. The card's not very good, is it? I mean, whoa, it does put... Okay, it's biochip. It's biochip synergy! And think about it, that's so thematic, because the heist puts cards into your trash. You can also find the biochip. And guess what, guys? Spoiler alert. In the heist, you get the biochip. So that's pretty cool. So that's like very cool. I do like the look of the biochip. Maybe a little bit less now that I realize that the unit that you get to play from it for free isn't, doing much in the end. But it's sellable. How many gears do you need to play in your deck for this to hit consistently? A lot. How big is the deck in Cyberpunk? Remind me. 40 cards, right? You're seeing 4 of them, and you're playing this, right? So basically, you've got a 39 card deck. We'll just call it 40 for ease, right? So you're seeing like 10% of your deck with this. So, I mean, I'm trying to do some quick maths. My conclusion is you're going to need a lot of gear for this to hit consistently. You're going to need at least, what? 12, 13, something like this. More. It's going to miss often. And then if it misses, you go -1. Realistically, you're not going to be playing this into your, for free. You're probably going to add it to hand. It could actually be really good though, right? Like if you've got lots of gear, which costs the same, right? Like there's the biochip that costs 5. Imagine there's just loads of gear that costs 5. And the heist is like, okay, if I can get a gig that costs 5, I play the heist and then I'm good to go. So I think it's a very cool card. It's probably a 3 out of 10 though. But I want to like it. I will definitely try and make it work.
Mate, thanks for the story input though. I didn't even realize how cool and flavorful and thematically designed this card is. I just realized that V even has the suitcase with the biochip in her left hand in this picture. Oh my goodness, yeah. And then being so synergistic with that package. So this is a great enabler of certain strategies. Again, I think this card gets better the more cards get revealed that have trash synergy. Yeah. Basically, you want this card to be at a place where it's good, even though if it can whiff, like say 10 or 20% of the time. Maybe even more, because getting the gigs adjusted to the proper value is really hard in the early game. So trashing 4, if this effect on its own already does enough for you, then the card is going to be really good. I think with what we've seen so far, we're not quite there yet. That's why I would agree with you and give this a subpar rating. I'd also give this like a 3 out of 10 for the same reason that I gave the biochip a fairly low rating. But it is exactly what that kind of strategy needs. It can put Atom Smasher in your trash quite easily. It can put other like things that you might want for like Braindances for Alt Cunningham or whatever. But you usually want to be playing a lot of gears with this deck, so you're not going to be playing that many programs. This might make deck building a bit scuffed on its own.
I do like the card though. Like it is like a build-around card, right? And 40 card deck. The mulligan system in this game is meaning that you're not going to have that much consistency. So actually just the act of like trashing the top 4 cards of your deck and maybe gaining access to the combo pieces, whether that be in the discard, in the hand, it's good. I like it a lot. I'm going to play this deck. Is it going to be good? Maybe 7 out of 10. I think it might be good.
Okay. We have a believer here. Moving on. Live with the Aftermath. Cost 3 yellow RAM. 3 cost each player defeats one of their units. That's what I alluded to earlier on when I said maybe there's a good way to nuke your own Dexter Deshawn, to defeat a unit that has the biochip equipped, that kind of stuff. Yellow now has access to get these defeat effects pretty consistently, even if your opponent tries to not give you a window of opportunity for it.
This card's insanely good.
One thing I noted when listening to the main podcast is also the effect is not conditional. So if you don't have a unit, your opponent does have a unit, only they sacrifice a unit. This can be one-sided removal. Again, I think this is a great card in slower yellow decks. It's really nice that this is 3 RAM and you currently need to play double yellow legends, which kind of contains the power that it doesn't get splashed into every random deck. Yeah, I think it's not absolutely busted because your opponent can choose which unit they sacrifice. But against certain decks that only want to play singular big units and put a bunch of gear onto them, or if you want to defeat your own stuff, or if you just don't have a board early on and just need to remove your opponent's 4-drop immediately or whatever. Great cards. What is this, like an 8.5 out of 10?
It's a 3 of as well, right? That's like the thing with this card. If you're playing this, you don't just play 1, you play all 3, because if you can get 2 in your hand and play 2 at the same time, it could be really powerful. Also, like, if there's other effects similar to this, I mean, this card is basically identical to Cull the Weak and Riftbound, which is an extremely meta staple card. But this card's also sellable. I just think, like, I love sellable cards. Obviously, you have to play units, which are for the most part unsellable. But like, the potential upside of this is so huge. And in the spots where it's bad, you sell it. So I think the card's extremely good. I would give it like a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, okay. I'm with you on this one. I think that was the last one for today's video. Yeah, we're going to continue with green and blue in our next episode, which we're going to record right away and upload a few days after this one. Okay. Any last words about this one? Or do you have any hot take of the week for this podcast?
Johnny Silverhand is the best legend in the Cyberpunk Trading Card Game.
Oh my goodness. I would agree if I didn't already see some of the yellow, green and blue ones. But it's up there. In the right strategy, I do agree. I'm actually curious about what our audience thinks of this, because there are so many good legends in this game. In the right context, many of them can be insane. Love it. Okay, I will say my personal take. Last video was Dum Dum, but that was before I fully understood how the quick keyword works and that you cannot use it in your own turn to react to your opponent's quick. So I will reevaluate, and it is not Johnny Silverhand. It's a card you haven't seen yet, and that one is the green Hanako Arasaka. We'll get to that one in the next episode. Let us know in the comments if you think that this guy right here, is the absolute best legend in the game, or if you have any other hot takes, or if you want to see us discuss other hot takes of the week in future episodes. That's it for us for now.
Bye.